Hi, I'm Sabonjole.
And I'm Jabari.
And welcome to That Brooklyn Film Show. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a few musicals that we recently watched. Just doing a little bit of deep dive into musicals and why we like them. So, in this week's episode, like I mentioned, we're talking about musicals. And we picked a couple of our favorites. For me, I don't have a favorite, but I do have like movies that are up there. So, I picked Hairspray, and Jabari, what did you pick?
I picked Purple Rain because, the music is just amazing.
Yeah, and then we also picked an outlier, one that we've never seen, which was Little Shop of Horrors. I've heard a lot about it, and it was on HBO, so I was like, let's watch it. We're doing musicals, why not? And then we came to a discussion, we'll get a little bit more into it later, about what is truly a musical, because we had some debate about whether or not Purple Rain is a musical or not, or if it's a movie with music. And from there, we also decided to watch A Star is Born, because that's a similar kind of musical as opposed to something more in the vein of Little Shop of Horrors or Hairspray.
So with that being said, let's get into discussions on the movies that we watched. Let's start with Little Shop of Horror. How did you feel about that movie as a musical?
I actually really enjoyed Little Shop of Horrors. I had a feeling I would because I've heard of it before. Like I said, I've just never watched it. I'm a pretty big fan of most musicals. I'm not very picky when it comes to musicals. There's a handful I don't like Moulin Rouge is one of them where I wasn't the biggest fan. But in general, most musicals I like. So with Little Shop of Horrors, I really enjoyed it. And then Hairspray as well, that was my pick for one of my top musicals. So I knew going into it I would enjoy it, and I just wanted to introduce it to you. And for me, I've never seen Purple Rain, and I also enjoy that immensely. The music obviously is great. It's a classic album. The story's pretty good. There are a couple of things here and there where I'm like, it'll make sense, but overall I enjoyed the movie. And then the same thing, I knew I liked A Star is Born because I had seen it when it first came out and then saw it again, and I knew I was going to like it because I liked it the first time.
So I'm going to get into Little Shop of Horror first because it was the first movie that we watched. I really enjoyed the movie because it was just unique in its vibe. It kind of had a play feel, but not to the extent that they were forcing that Broadway play movie feel. So that one was really good. I enjoyed the music. I don't know who played the plant, but he was my favorite artist in the movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look up who played the plant.
Yeah,
real quick.
He was my favorite part. I liked that a lot of the story wasn't too deep. It was kind of silly in that the man is feeding this plant things and music is happening in the midst of it. But I really enjoyed that loose kind of vibe that it had. It was directed by Frank Oz, who did movies such as The Muppets Take Manhattan and Dark Crystal. So you had some good puppetry in the movie, which I really enjoyed. I really like any kind of good practical effect is always a timeless kind of thing you could add to a movie.
I agree. I think practical effects help movies age better. We were talking about this during the movie when I mentioned with Star Wars, how you have the original Star Wars and you have Yoda and he's a puppet versus the prequels where they make him CGI. And I think people have a noticeable different reaction towards
the
those
CGI one versus the practical version. Yeah,
even something like Lord of the Rings, I think, aged very well because it uses
any kind of movie with practical effects, Jaws, Jurassic Park. Practical effects are just in general, they just age better.
Even now, with Baby Yoda, the fact that they made him a puppet, although they could easily do CGI.
People feel more connection to
when it's there. So I think that works very well for Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah. The second movie that we watched was Hairspray. I enjoyed that one too. It kind of felt a little bit weird because it was like racism in Fantasyland, which was a little bit weird to me given the time that we're watching it and everything that's going on. But the music I enjoyed. I liked the character. It felt a little bit too White Girl Saves the World in that points of it.
Dances with
the black people. But it was a good movie. I enjoyed the music. I liked the characters. I didn't really like John Travolta in the role, but what can you do about that? because he just, I don't know, something about John Travolta. I just don't like him as an actor that much. That's always been the case. He just has a very.
I think there's some actors that you just don't like, gravitate towards. Yeah,
like I don't dislike him, but it's just something about him that's like.
Yeah, even if they have a good role, it's kind of like.
Yeah. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I like the music. I'm trying to remember what my favorite song. I think I like the song where they were dancing in the street together. You know what I'm talking about? Where it was like a bunch of people in the street and they were dancing, the mother and the daughter. Oh, I think it might be the main song. Can't Stop the Beat is what I think it was called. But
You Can't Stop the Beat.
You Can't Stop the Beat. Yeah, that was a good one. But the third musical that we watched was Purple Rain, which was my favorite musical. So, of course, I love that one a lot because of... I mean, it's kind of unfair because Purple Rain album is a timeless album. It's considered a classic album by many people. And, I mean, I enjoyed the story, too. Like, it's a real story about a man who suffers childhood trauma from his father, and then his father's toxic habits are passed on to him. I mean, it's a silly movie, all in all, but it does have some modicum of truth to it because of what it's trying to talk about.
Generational trauma.
Yeah, generational trauma and passing that on, and this misogynistic world that they live in, especially the clubs are very misogynistic towards women, and you just see a lot of that in there.
Yeah, and women being thrown in dumpster cans.
Yeah, literally being thrown in dumpster cans, and just in general, the movie was it's timeless to me. I really like the movie. And then we also try to watch A Star Is Born. We didn't get a chance to finish it, but I've seen that movie like 8 times because I love it so much. That's another movie that to me is timeless because of, I mean, that's my recency bias talking, but I think that in the end it will be timeless because the music is good. Once the music is good.
I think you can also say that it's a timeless film just because of the or even if it's not the specific film is not timeless, you could say that the concept, the story is timeless because it has been remade so many times.
Yeah.
Like this is the third iteration of it. So clearly the story is a story that people, gravitate towards.
So is the first movie story dissimilar? Like guy discovers girl, girls gets famous, and the guy's always already famous?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never seen the original two, but I know the
but you just know the
premise.
Basic premise of it, yeah. And then we watched Moulin Rouge, which we both don't seem to like at all. Yeah,
and this was my second time watching it too, which is like why I wanted to watch because I knew we were doing a musical episode. And, it got nominated for the Oscar Best Picture in 2002. So I thought, let's revisit this and see maybe if I was wrong the first time I watched it. I watched it in college. I don't know if I changed that much since then, but maybe I had a different opinion. But no, it did not change. And it's funny because to me, it does feel like a film that I would really enjoy with the fact that it uses a lot of modern music and it's set in Paris and it's like this big fun film. But just something about it for me.
It's a bit too big and too fun for me.
Yeah.
It's because of the director's style. I don't remember his name, but Maz Luhrmann. Because he also did that TV show that I could not stand, The Get Down.
Like The Get Down.
I just can't stand his style. It's too much for me. It's very overwhelming on the senses. Like you have a lot of
The Great Gatsby.
The Great Gatsby is also overwhelming. You have a lot of quick cuts. You have overwhelming sets. You have people who aren't acting like people. They're acting like. It feels like they're acting, and I just don't personally like that. Mm-hmm. There's just something about his style that I don't like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've seen those 4 musicals that we watched this past week, and just wanted to get into the comparison of the different kinds of musicals because we talked about what do you call them?
I guess so you have 2 kinds of musicals that we watch. The first kind was the ones that are like Little Shop of Horrors, Hairspray, and Moulin Rouge, where they kind of break out into song, in their everyday life. So it's like I'm walking down the street and then I'm singing versus something like Purple Rain and A Star Is Born, where the music exists within the movie as a song. If that
but they're not breaking on into performances and stuff.
Yeah, they're going onto stage to perform the song. They're never sitting at home and singing unless they're like sitting at home and singing because they're singing to each other.
It's kind of like it's like I guess I can see what you're saying. Like one's a music movie and one's a musical, but I think that they're both music is the driving theme of the movie. So I think they fall into musical. Like what's that movie called that came out recently? Bohemian Rhapsody. I will call that a musical personally.
Yeah, so it's like Bohemian Rhapsody versus Rocket Man, where Rocket
Yeah.
Man put Elton John's music throughout the movie, and he broke out into song at random moments, versus Bohemian Rhapsody, where they just perform the music throughout the song, or even something like La La Land, which is more of a
traditional musical where it breaks out in song.
Mm-hmm.
But what is a movie that, like, I guess you have the other ones that is like a music movie that's not a musical. Like, no one would ever consider Whiplash a musical, even though music is a driving theme of the film.
Movie. Yeah.
So it is an interesting thing to think about, like, what is a musical? Because I could see why people wouldn't consider A Star is Born a musical or Purple Rain a musical, because the traditional idea of a musical is based on Broadway plays where it's like you break out into song in order to do that scene. What is that first musical called?
Little Shop of Horrors?
No, the very first musical that came out. Was it
I think the very first.
Singing in the Rain was not the first musical.
It's not the first musical.
It's just one of the pioneering musicals.
Yeah. It's called The Jazz Singer.
Okay,
it came out in 1927.
Was there a remake to that movie?
Not as far as I know. So the first movie we watched, as we mentioned, was A Little Shop of Horrors, which was directed by Frank Oz. It was released in 1986 and is a film adaptation of a 1982 off-Broadway musical. And it's about a man-eating plant, which is as ridiculous as it sounds, but it was a fun movie to watch. Yeah, I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it did give me Rocky Horror Picture Show vibes in terms of, I guess, like how fantastical it was, the era that it came out in. It just was, to me, a fun movie. I also liked the women who were singing. I don't know what they would be called. They reminded me of the muses from Hercules, like you mentioned. And so, yeah, the Greek chorus in the movie, I really like that aspect of, having these people or these women that are narrating the film while you're watching the film. And they could all really sing. I think most of them came from the off-Broadway play to the musical, actually.
Yeah, I appreciate that aspect of it too. The singing narration actually made me wish more movies do that, because it reminded me of Hercules in that they would sing out different points of the movie. And it works, like you said, a very play kind of thing, because in the play it kind of like gives you a recap of what's going on. That's kind of what they were there to do, just push the story forward. Mm-hmm. Because in a musical, I never think the story should be the most important aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing I look for in musicals, especially like these kind of musicals versus like the musical drama, which we talked about with Purple Rain and A Star is Born being, which are more like musical dramas. For like more traditional musicals, I think I look for the listenability. I think that's the word. I hope that's the word of the songs within the movie. Like, is it fun? Does it make me want to sing along? Does it, are they memorable? And I feel like for this movie, the songs were memorable. Yeah,
I think that the music obviously the music for a musical should be the most important aspect, because while the story can play a role, if you have good story but bad music, that's why I personally didn't like La La Land. I know a lot of other people like the music in La La Land, so that's just my personal preference. But the directing wasn't bad, the acting wasn't bad, but just because I didn't enjoy the music, I didn't really like the musical that much.
Yeah. So that's a little bit more about Little Shop of Horrors. Do you want to get a little bit more into Hairspray?
Yeah.
With Hairspray, we actually watched the 2007 film. I know that there was an original film that came out in the 1980s. This was my pick for my top musical, and I think that a part of that was because I did watch it growing up, so I did really enjoy it, which is why I picked the remake as opposed to the original.
Do you think it still is your favorite musical after a rewatch?
Even going into it, I didn't know if it was my favorite musical. I knew that it was up there in my top musicals, and I think it's still up there in my top musicals. But I don't know if I would call it my favorite. I think I have a few of them. Like I mentioned just a moment ago, Rocky Horror Picture Show is one of my favorite musicals as well. I really like The Wiz, and a big part of those, the music as well. Rocky Horror Picture Show is more of the whimsy and the fun and the fact that you can go to it, see it at midnight, and watch with the crowd. But again, like I said, if I couldn't go on Spotify and listen to the music
then you consider it a good musical.
Well, I think other things have to be good as well. Like, it's not just the music, but I think a big part of it
music is one of the biggest aspects of it. It's like how in a regular movie you may consider the good characters a big aspect
of it.
In the musical, the characters is not important because if the music is good.
Yeah. But sorry, to get a little bit more into Hairspray, it's a 2007 musical romantic comedy based off of a 2002 Broadway play of the same name, which was based off of a 1988 comedy film of the same name by John Waters. And this one was directed by Adam Shankman, and it was released, like I said, in 2007. The basic premise is a girl wants to try out for a local TV show, and at the same time, she's a plus size girl, so she doesn't fit in at the local TV station, but she can really dance. So eventually she does get cast on the show. And then there's also a side plot of trying to get the local TV show integrated as well. Because right in the beginning of the movie, once a month they have their Negro Day. So they're trying to get rid of that or integrate it. And the events of the movie play out through that lens. And going back to what you said, I think one big part of this movie is that it's very much a fantasy land. Like, 1960s Baltimore, one riot wouldn't have integrated a TV station. All these people wouldn't have been cheering. It wouldn't have been this picture perfect ending that they had. But I don't mind that, because sometimes you do just want to have a fun
It's like a nice escapism kind of movie. Yeah.
Where, everyone is just cheering for the TV station to get integrated in the 1960s or 1962. And
where most of the people that voted for the black girl to win, when, in real life, they're just going to be sending a bunch of threats in.
Yeah, where, the white girl can kiss the black guy on the TV show and it just be okay. And there's
the fans
not,
are celebrating inside,
So, I think that looking at it as a form of escapism with good music to enjoy is a better way to watch it than, trying to really dissect maybe how this wouldn't work for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So that's another reason that I think that I enjoy it, because to me it's just a fun movie. I'm not looking at it for, some real serious groundbreaking drama or groundbreaking, like, it's a fun movie to watch, and it brings me joy when I watch it and singing along and just enjoying it, which I think it's important to have those movies too on top of your favorite dramas and your favorite all of those other things. You want to have your favorite lighthearted, fun movies, and this is one of those for me.
Yeah, I agree. I said a lot of that earlier in the episode with that. While the movie did have a lot of, not real aspects of it, it was a good film to watch and just feel good for the moment. It's a nice escapism movie. The music is very upbeat. There's no real, downtrodden songs. Like, A Star is Born is not a movie I would want to watch when I'm not in a good mood, because the themes are so heavy. But Hairspray is a movie you might be like, you know what, I need a nice pick-me-up, so I would turn that movie on.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too. Some days you want to have the, tear jerkers, make you cry kind of movies. Other days you just want fluff. You just want fun. And that's something you can turn on when you want that.
Yep. So next we're going to get into A Star is Born, right?
And A Star is Born, as we mentioned, is a remake. It came out in 2018 and it was directed by Bradley Cooper. And the premise is a country rock singer who is battling alcohol and drug addiction meets a woman who is not a celebrity, and she is a songwriter, and eventually she gets catapulted to superstardom, and you see how the relationship between them functions before her fame, after her fame, and how the fame kind of plays a part in that, and then how his own issues play a part in that as well. For me personally, like I said, I really enjoyed A Star is Born when it came out. I enjoyed it again watching it or watching part of it yesterday, and one of the biggest things I liked about that movie again is the music, because although the drama is a big part of that one, unlike something like Hairspray, I think the music was a driving force that helped the drama along. You know what I mean? Like you always felt the music.
I agree.
In the moments that they came up. Yeah, you had a couple of fun songs, but most of it was like Shallows and Always Remember You This Way and like these dramatic, ballads. And stuff.
No, that's why it's one of my favorite musicals ever, is because the music and the movie kind of coincide with each other. And that the music, you could hear the change in music throughout the movie, depending on where the characters are at. So like in the beginning, they're singing all together because they're in a good place. Then later in the movie, they're a little bit not in the best place. So the music and the themes of the music change as well, which I personally like about it.
And even like with the aspect of her getting famous, you see her sound change because she starts off as like
more
this
pop
ballad singer. Yeah, and then she's singing like these pop songs and, changing the way she looks and everything, which was a big part of the beginning of the movie, is that she couldn't be famous because of how she looked. And then she becomes famous and she changes, her hair and different aspects of herself, which isn't inherently bad or anything like that, but it is something that you notice in the movie and how that plays a part in their relationship, especially with her fame on the rise
and his fame on the fall.
His fame falling.
Yeah.
And I think that both Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper were really good in that movie, although there are a couple of moments where I genuinely do not understand what Bradley Cooper's saying, between him being alcoholic and the country accent. It's just like, what is your character? He's supposed to be drunk and country, and it's just not a good combination.
Yeah, there's a lot of mumbling in the movie.
I think that most of the time the mumbling works. So those are our reviews for, well, not really a review, just a discussion about the three movies. And now we do want to get into the next segment, which will just be our top songs from each movie. And do you want to switch it up and go backwards, start with A Star Is Born, and then work our way up to A Little Shop? Because we've been going...
Yeah, so I'll start with A Star Is Born. My favorite song in that movie was Shallow. Is that the name of the song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's favorite song in the movie. It's not really being creative or... So yeah, that was my favorite song in the movie. It's just a good song. Like, I don't really know what else to say about it. I just love that song.
I will say that was one of my favorite songs. I think my favorite song will go to the last song she sings in the movie, After Everything Goes Down. So my favorite song is the last song she sings in the movie, which is I'll Never Love Again, which, spoiler warning, comes after he kills himself. And it's just like a very emotional moment in how the movie ends. And I think that's why it's my favorite song as opposed to Shallow, although Shallow is a great song and obviously what, you think about when you think of A Star Is Born.
I mean, I like that song a lot too. I mean, it's a very emotional song, so I think the only thing is that I think that song requires the movie for me to personally fully enjoy. Yeah. Versus a Shallow, which I could just listen to at any time. Yeah, I don't think I ever listened to that last song on my own outside of that movie. Yeah,
I agree with that. I concur that the movie gives the last song more emotional resonance than Shallow. With Shallow, you can listen to and just, it was, I think, on the Billboard charts for a while, just the song alone, without, the movie.
So you want to go to the next movie?
Yeah, next movie it will be Purple Rain.
Okay, yeah. My favorite song in Purple Rain. I gotta think about that. There's so many good songs in Purple Rain.
Are you gonna say Purple Rain too?
No, I'm not gonna say Purple Rain. Purple Rain is actually not my favorite song of Purple Rain. It's When Doves Cry, because I don't know that song. I just always liked that song. Even before I saw the movie and I heard that song, I used to play that song in general. Like, it's just a good song.
I concur with that pick. My favorite song is When Doves Cry as well. I heard that was like one of the few songs from Purple Rain that I've heard. I know Prince music. I know the most popular stuff like When Doves Cry and Purple Rain in 1999. But I think, again, watching the movie and when they play When Doves Cry does add that emotional resonance to the song.
When did they play that
well.
song?
I think after he slaps his girlfriend or something.
Oh, when they were just driving through, It wasn't like a performance like the other songs.
It wasn't
was just in the background.
It was in the background.
I do think that Purple Rain is similar to the song in A Star Is Born, where the whole movie led up to that moment. Because the whole movie is pretty much him coming to terms with the song and performing Purple Rain coincides with his character development in the movie.
Yeah.
So I really do appreciate the performance that he gave of Purple Rain in the movie and how it led to that. Because Purple Rain is a very famous, notable song. It's kind of like in Bohemian Rhapsody, how the whole movie was him leading up to Bohemian Rhapsody. So
yeah. So the next one will be Hairspray, and you mentioned your favorite song, but you could just mention it again.
What was the name again?
You Can't Stop the Beat.
Yeah, You Can't Stop the Beat was my favorite song. It's just a good upbeat song. Like, I don't really have much to say about it other than it's just a good feel good song. It's a Broadway soundy song that feels good.
I would say that my favorite is a tie between the Welcome to the 60s and Run and Tell That, which was the first song that you see the Black kids sing in the movie. And you got introduced to the characters earlier, but this is like their big moment to sing, and I just really enjoyed the song. And then next we have Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes, I can't remember any particular. I like the song when he was the Steve Martin was singing, actually.
The psychopathic.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that song. I forget the name of it, but it was just funny. Like that was actually had me laughing.
I actually liked Steve Martin in that movie, and Steve Martin is like a John Travolta for me.
Yeah,
like,
I don't really like Steve Martin.
I don't really enjoy
much.
Steve Martin, but I did enjoy him as this sadistic dentist. You know, I'm sorry. I know we're talking about our favorite songs, but I think what was fun in Little Shop of Horror were the cameos, because that Bill Murray cameo was just so random and so weird.
It was funny though.
It was fun.
He was just a weirdo.
Yeah, like he enjoyed the fact that this was a sadistic dentist who was trying to inflict as much pain as possible. Like he was looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, that was weird.
But sorry, off track. Back to my favorite song. My favorite song would be the Feed Me song that Audrey 2 first sung when he wanted Seymour to feed him somebody.
Yeah.
And he convinced him with like, I'll give you everything you want, just feed me. And I mean, he fed him. So I think,
that goes back to what I was saying about the guy who played the voice of the plant being the best performer in there. But you said he was an actual artist, so
yeah, he was a part of the group called the Four Tops, which was a big Motown group.
Okay. So in the 80s?
In the 60s and 70s.
Oh, okay. So I guess he was older when he performed that role. Yeah. Okay.
So I definitely enjoyed that song. And I think I gravitate towards that kind of sound anyways. I think that's another big reason why I enjoy like The Wiz a lot, because of the music. The
1960s sound. Yeah. 1960s musicals. I want to say not the white ones, but a lot of the 1960s Motown sound is really good. Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's pretty much what we have for this week's episode. Do you have any closing thoughts about musicals or any of the movies that we watched before we wrap up?
Not too much. You know, I really like most of the movies that we watched are movies that were our favorites. So there's stuff that we're going to enjoy on second watch. I enjoyed what you recommended. And then we watched A Star Is Born, which is something we both just enjoyed a lot. We didn't really talk about Moulin Rouge too much. I did not like that movie, so I don't mind not talking about that. But yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I really wasn't a musical kind of person. But as I gotten older, I've learned to appreciate them more. And as I watch and learn more about musicals, I tend to realize it's a genre that I really like.
Yeah. And I'm the opposite of you. Growing up, I loved musicals. Like, this was a very difficult task for me to even pick a favorite. I legitimately thought of picking High School Musical, but I did not want to be judged by our audience for picking a Disney Channel musical. So
but it's a good musical, so
it is. It's enjoyable. It's fun. That's what I look for. I look for fun.
Yeah.
I look for other things as well. Now that I'm older, I do enjoy the other side of musicals, but when I was growing up, I always
wanted the fun,
enjoyed musicals because they were fun. And that's part of the reason why I thought that we should do a musical episode. And I'm glad that we did, just to get a chance to watch them and just look at different types.
Something that we could revisit in the future as well. Yeah. There's so many musicals that...
There's so many.
Like, we could do a musical, like, the dark musicals, and then
you got Sweeney Todd, which is, like, him murdering people. And
exactly. So it's a big genre that requires multiple revisits.
Yeah. And I also think you could look at the difference between even how musical translated from Broadway onto the stage. Because look at something like Chicago, which I saw on Broadway. And
you saw the film
as well. I saw the film. And for me, I enjoyed the film. I think it was a different level of enjoyment, though.
Yeah, it's a different kind of enjoyment.
The movie, the same thing with something like Rent, which I saw both.
Yeah.
You could, like, revisit that as well, and the translation and what changes. And again, like you said, the different kind, because you do have the dark musicals, and then you have the more comedy and horror musicals, which Little Shop of Horrors is considered part horror comedy.
Yeah.
So, which Little Shop of Horrors, it's in the name. But you can, I think this is definitely a topic we can revisit, and I look forward to when we get a chance to do that. And even, I'm sorry, I keep talking about different kinds of musicals. You didn't even open the can of worms with cartoon musicals, which is,
a whole nother
genre.
Yeah.
Because I asked a friend about it, and she said Hairspray. No, I'm not Hairspray, my bad. She said Happy Feet, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that, because I was thinking of live action.
Every Disney movie, basically.
Every Disney movie, and then you have, films outside of Disney as well that go into that topic.
Exactly.
So I think that will be, another topic we could come back to one day. I do want to eventually do an episode about animated films, because I think animated films are oftentimes as good, if not better, than live action.
Yes, I agree.
So sorry for my rambling thoughts there, but that's all we have for this week's episode of That Brooklyn Film Show.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.